Central nervous system. The central nervous system (CNS) is the part of the nervous system that includes the brain and the spinal cord. The CNS is responsible for receiving and processing sensory information from the body and the environment, integrating this information, and coordinating the body's response through motor output. The brain is the chief coordinating center of the CNS, responsible for higher cognitive functions such as perception, sensation, reasoning, and memory. The spinal cord, which runs down the length of the vertebral column, serves as a pathway for transmitting sensory and motor signals between the brain and the peripheral nervous system. The CNS plays a critical role in regulating many of the body's physiological processes, including heart rate, blood pressure, respiration, and digestion. The human brain. The human brain is the central organ of the nervous system, responsible for controlling and coordinating the body's activities and behaviors. It is encased in the skull and weighs about 1.5 kilograms. The brain is divided into several distinct regions that perform specialized functions, including the cerebrum, cerebellum, and brainstem. The cerebrum, which is the largest part of the brain, is responsible for conscious thought, sensory perception, and voluntary movement. The cerebellum is involved in coordination and balance, while the brainstem plays a role in regulating vital functions such as breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. The brain is composed of billions of specialized cells called neurons and intricate networks of connecting fibers called synapses. These neurons communicate with each other by sending electrical and chemical signals across synapses, allowing the brain to process and integrate information from the environment, the senses, and the body's internal systems. Parts of the brain. The human brain is divided into several distinct regions that perform specialized functions. Here are some of the major parts of the brain. 1. Cerebral cortex, the outer layer of the cerebrum, responsible for conscious thought, sensation, perception, and voluntary movement. 2. Basal ganglia, a group of nuclei located deep within the cerebral hemispheres that play a role in motor control, cognitive and emotional regulation. 3. Limbic system, a group of structures located in the center of the brain that is involved in regulating emotion, motivation, learning, and memory. 4. Thalamus, a structure located deep within the brain that acts as a relay between various sensory and motor systems. 5. Hypothalamus, a small region located beneath the thalamus that plays a crucial role in regulating hormone production, body temperature, hunger, thirst, and other vital functions. 6. Cerebellum, a large structure located at the base of the brain that is involved in coordinating movement, balance, and posture. 7. Brainstem, the lower part of the brain that connects the spinal cord to the rest of the brain and plays a key role in regulating vital functions such as breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. It is made up of 3 parts, the medulla oblongata, pons, and midbrain. These are just a few of the major parts of the brain. Each of these regions is further divided into smaller structures that perform specific functions, and they all work together to coordinate the body's activities and behaviors. Ventricles. The brain is surrounded by a system of fluid-filled cavities known as ventricles. There are 4 ventricles in the brain. 1. Lateral ventricles. 2. The largest ventricles located in each cerebral hemisphere. 2. Third ventricle, located in the center of the brain, between the 2 halves of the thalamus. 3. Fourth ventricle, located between the brainstem and the cerebellum. The ventricles are filled with cerebrospinal fluid (CSF), a clear liquid that provides cushioning to the brain and spinal cord, removes waste products, and delivers nutrients and hormones throughout the nervous system. The ventricles are connected by narrow channels called foramina, which allow the CSF to circulate throughout the ventricular system and the spinal cord. Problems with the ventricles can lead to a number of neurological disorders, such as hydrocephalus, a condition in which excess CSF accumulates in the brain, causing pressure and potential damage to brain tissue. Meninges. The meninges are a set of 3 protective membranes that surround and support the brain and spinal cord. The 3 layers, from outermost to innermost, are 1. Dura mater, the outermost and toughest layer, composed of dense connective tissue that acts as a protective barrier for the brain and spinal cord. 2. Arachnoid mater, the middle layer, with a spiderweb-like appearance, that provides a cushioning effect. 3. Pia mater, the innermost layer that is in direct contact with the surface of the brain and spinal cord, providing support and blood supply. The meninges perform several important functions, including protecting the brain and spinal cord from injury, providing structural support, and helping to regulate the flow of cerebrospinal fluid around the brain and spinal cord. Infections or inflammation of the meninges can cause serious neurological conditions such as meningitis or encephalitis. Cranial nerves. Cranial nerves are a set of 12 pairs of nerves that emerge directly from the brain and are responsible for controlling many of the sensory and motor functions of the head and neck. Each cranial nerve is designated a Roman numeral and a name based on its function. Here are the 12 pairs of cranial nerves and their primary functions. 1. Olfactory nerve, I, responsible for the sense of smell. 2. Optic nerve, 2, responsible for vision. 3. Oculomotor nerve, 3, controls the movement of most eye muscles and the dilation of the pupil. 4. Trochlear nerve IV, controls the movement of one of the eye muscles. 5. Trigeminal nerve, V, responsible for sensory information from the face and control of the jaw muscles. 6. Abducens nerve, VI, controls another of the eye muscles. 7. Facial nerve, 7, controls facial movements, sensation of taste in front of the tongue, and stimulates secretion of saliva and tears. 8. Vestibulocochlear nerve, 8, responsible for hearing and balance. 9. Glossopharyngeal nerve, 9, controls swallowing and provides taste sensation for the back part of the tongue and the throat. 10. Vagus nerve, X, controls various organs including the heart, digestive system, and respiratory system. 11. Accessory nerve, XI, controls the muscles of the neck and shoulders. 12. Hypoglossal nerve, 12, controls the movement of the tongue. Each cranial nerve has a different set of functions and can be affected in various neurological disorders. Spinal nerves. The spinal nerves are a set of 31 pairs of nerves that arise from the spinal cord and provide sensory, motor, and autonomic function to the body below the head. The spinal nerves are numbered and named based on the segment of the spine they originate from. 1. 8 cervical spinal nerves, C1, C8. 2. 12 thoracic spinal nerves, T1, T1-2. 3. 5 lumbar spinal nerves, L1, L5. 4. 5 sacral spinal nerves, S1, S5. 5. 1 coccygeal spinal nerve, CO. Each spinal nerve originates from a root area in the spinal cord, with dorsal roots carrying sensory information from the body to the spinal cord, and ventral roots carrying motor information from the spinal cord to the muscles in the body. These roots combine to form the spinal nerve as it exits the spinal column. The spinal nerves are responsible for sensation and control of many parts of the body, including the arms, legs, chest, and abdomen. When a spinal nerve is damaged or compressed, it can cause pain, weakness, or loss of sensation in the affected region. Conditions that can affect the spinal nerves include herniated discs, spinal stenosis, and nerve root compression. Functions of the brain. The brain is the most complex organ in the human body, and it controls many of our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Here are some of the key functions of the brain. 1. Control of movement. The motor cortex in the brain controls voluntary movement of the body, while the cerebellum is responsible for coordinating movement and maintaining balance. 2. Perception of sensations. The brain interprets information from the senses, sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell, to give us a representation of the world around us. 3. Memory and learning. The hippocampus is involved in the formation of new memories, while other parts of the brain are responsible for learning and recall of information. 4. Emotion and motivation. The amygdala and other brain regions are involved in processing emotions and generating motivation for certain actions. 5. Language and communication. The left hemisphere of the brain is responsible for language comprehension and production, and damage to this area can result in language disorders such as aphasia. 6. Decision-making and problem-solving. The prefrontal cortex is involved in planning, decision-making, and problem-solving. 7. Homeostasis. The brain helps regulate many bodily functions, such as heart rate, blood pressure, and body temperature, to maintain homeostasis. 8. Sleep and consciousness. The brain regulates our sleep-wake cycles and is responsible for our level of consciousness and awareness. These are just a few of the many important functions of the brain. Different parts of the brain work together in complex ways to produce our thoughts, experiences, and behaviors. B. The spinal cord. The spinal cord is a long, thin, tubular bundle of nervous tissue that extends from the brainstem down through the vertebral column, or spine. It is surrounded and protected by the spinal column and meninges. The spinal cord serves as a pathway for nerve impulses traveling to and from the brain. It also contains reflex centers that allow for quick response to certain stimuli without involving the brain. The spinal cord is divided into regions that correspond to the different levels of the vertebral column. These regions include 1. Cervical region, located in the neck. This region consists of 8 spinal cord segments. 2. Thoracic region, located in the chest. This region consists of 12 spinal cord segments. 3. Lumbar region, located in the lower back. This region consists of 5 spinal cord segments. 4. Sacral region, located below the lumbar region. This region consists of 5 spinal cord segments. The spinal cord communicates with the body through a system of 31 pairs of spinal nerves that connect to the various muscles, organs, and other tissues. These nerves emerge from the spinal cord through spaces between the vertebrae known as intervertebral foramina. Damage to the spinal cord can result in loss of sensation and movement below the level of injury. Depending on the severity of the damage, this can cause partial or complete paralysis. Common causes of spinal cord injuries include trauma, infections, tumors, and degenerative diseases. Cross-section of the spinal cord. The spinal cord is roughly cylindrical in shape and can be divided into gray matter and white matter. The gray matter is located in the center of the spinal cord and is shaped like a butterfly or the letter H. It consists of cell bodies, dendrites, and unmyelinated axons, and is involved in processing and transmitting information. The gray matter is divided into anterior, posterior, and lateral horns, depending on its location. The white matter surrounds the gray matter and consists of myelinated axons that form bundles called tracts. These tracts transmit information up and down the spinal cord, connecting the brain with the peripheral nervous system. The white matter is divided into 3 regions: anterior, lateral, and posterior columns. Running through the center of the gray matter is the central canal, which is filled with cerebrospinal fluid. This fluid helps cushion and protect the spinal cord. At each vertebral level, pairs of spinal nerves emerge from the spinal cord and travel to the different parts of the body. These nerves contain both sensory and motor fibers and allow for communication between the central nervous system and the rest of the body. Damage to the spinal cord can result in disruption of these pathways and lead to loss of sensation and movement below the level of injury. Diagram of spinal cord showing paired spinal nerves. Description of diagram of the spinal cord showing paired spinal nerve. Picture the spinal cord as a cylindrical structure running through the vertebral column with gray matter in the central region and white matter surrounding it. At each spinal cord level, there are paired spinal nerves that branch off from the spinal cord and exit through the intervertebral foramen. These spinal nerves contain both sensory and motor fibers that connect specific regions of the body to the spinal cord. The spinal cord is divided into cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and sacral regions, and the corresponding spinal nerves that exit at each of these regions are numbered accordingly. The cervical spinal nerves emerge above the corresponding vertebra, while the rest of the spinal nerves emerge below their corresponding vertebra. In summary, the spinal cord diagram shows pairs of spinal nerves branching off from the spinal cord and running through the vertebrae to connect various body parts to the spinal cord. Description of the structure of human nervous system. The human nervous system is composed of 2 main parts, the central nervous system CNS and the peripheral nervous system PNS. The CNS consists of the brain and the spinal cord, which are responsible for processing and integrating sensory information, and coordinating and controlling bodily functions. The brain and spinal cord are both enclosed within the protective bony structures of the skull and vertebral column, respectively. The brain is further divided into several regions, each with distinct functions. The cerebrum, located in the upper part of the brain, is responsible for conscious thought, perception, and voluntary movement. The cerebellum, located at the base of the brain, is responsible for coordinating movement and balance. The brainstem, located between the brain and spinal cord, is responsible for regulating essential functions such as breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. The PNS consists of nerve fibers that connect the CNS to the rest of the body. It is further divided into 2 parts, the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. The somatic nervous system controls voluntary muscle movements and transmits sensory information from the body back to the CNS. The autonomic nervous system controls involuntary functions such as heartbeat, digestion, and breathing. The PNS also contains sensory receptors, which respond to various stimuli such as light, sound, touch, and temperature, and transmit this information to the CNS. There are different types of sensory receptors such as mechanoreceptors, chemoreceptors, and photoreceptors that detect different types of stimuli. In summary, the human nervous system is a complex and interconnected network of cells, nerves, and organs that work together to regulate bodily functions, process information, and respond to the environment. Functions of the spinal cord. The spinal cord is a long, thin, tubular bundle of nerves that extends from the brain and runs throughout the vertebral column. It performs several important functions, including 1. Sensory and motor functions. The spinal cord serves as a pathway for transmitting sensory information from the body to the brain, and motor signals from the brain to the body. Sensory nerve fibers carry signals which include pain, temperature, pressure, and touch from the body to the spinal cord, where they are processed and relayed to the brain. Motor nerve fibers carry instructions from the brain to the muscles, glands, and organs, enabling movement and various involuntary functions. 2. Reflex actions. The spinal cord plays a vital role in controlling reflex actions. Reflexes are quick, automatic responses to sensory stimuli that occur without conscious thought. The spinal cord integrates sensory information and produces reflex actions that are necessary for our survival and safety. 3. Coordination. The spinal cord is responsible for coordinating complex motor movements that require the interaction of multiple muscle groups, such as walking, running, and dancing. 4. Protection. The spinal cord is protected by the bony structures of the vertebral column, which help shield it from damage caused by everyday movements and physical trauma. In summary, the spinal cord is an essential part of the human nervous system, responsible for conducting sensory and motor signals, reflex actions, coordination, and protection. Revision questions. 1. State the functions of the following parts of the brain. A. Pituitary gland. B. Hypothalamus. C. Medulla oblongata. A pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is responsible for producing and secreting hormones that regulate various bodily functions, including growth, metabolism, and reproduction. It controls the activity of other hormone-secreting glands in the body and plays a significant role in the endocrine system. B. Hypothalamus. The hypothalamus plays a crucial role in regulating the autonomic nervous system and integrating the body's nervous and endocrine systems. It helps to control essential functions such as body temperature, hunger, thirst, and sleep-wake cycles. It also plays a key role in regulating the release of hormones from the pituitary gland. See medulla oblongata. The medulla oblongata is located in the lower part of the brainstem and is responsible for controlling many of the body's automatic functions, including breathing, heart rate, blood pressure, and digestion. It also processes sensory information and relays it to higher brain centers for further processing. The medulla oblongata is essential for the body's survival and can be considered a life-supporting center of the brain. 2. How is the spinal cord protected against mechanical damage? The spinal cord is protected against mechanical damage by the vertebral column, which is a bony structure that surrounds and encases the spinal cord. The vertebral column is composed of 33 individual vertebrae that are stacked on top of each other and separated by intervertebral discs, which act as shock absorbers. The vertebral column is divided into 5 regions: cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and coccygeal, each with a different number of vertebrae. The cervical and lumbar regions are the most mobile and susceptible to injury due to their increased range of motion. The vertebral column undergoes a series of curves, including the cervical and lumbar lordosis and thoracic and sacrum kyphosis. These curves help to distribute the forces experienced by the spine equally and reduce the risk of injury. In addition to the vertebral column, the spinal cord is also protected by other structures, including the meninges, which are 3 layers of tissue that surround and cushion the spinal cord, and the cerebrospinal fluid, which acts as a shock absorber and helps to protect the spinal cord from sudden jerks and movements. 3. Name the fluid that nourishes brain cells. The fluid that nourishes brain cells is called cerebrospinal fluid. 4. Distinguish between gray and white matter. Gray matter and white matter are 2 types of tissue found in the central nervous system. Gray matter refers to the areas of the brain and spinal cord that mainly contain cell bodies, dendrites, and synapses. It appears gray or pinkish in color due to the presence of neurons and their support cells. Gray matter is responsible for processing information, including emotions, memory, speech, sensory input, and motor function. White matter refers to the areas of the brain and spinal cord composed of axons, which are long, thread-like extensions of nerve cells that carry electrical impulses between neurons in different parts of the brain and between the brain and other parts of the body. White matter is mostly composed of myelinated axons, which are covered by a fatty substance called myelin that gives white matter its characteristic color. White matter is responsible for transmitting information across the brain and spinal cord and plays an essential role in sensory and motor coordination. In summary, gray matter refers to areas of the brain and spinal cord that contain cell bodies and synapses, while white matter refers to areas that contain myelinated axons responsible for transmitting information.